Alright, let's see if I remember how to do all this. There we go. Hello there. I'm Enviroboy. This is my channel. It's a new year. I haven't seen you guys since last year. Aha! It's that joke. I'm sure no one's tired of that one yet. Feels good to be back though. Nice break from streaming. Nice to take some time, visit family, and do all that kind of stuff as one does over the holidays. No doubt about that. But it's good to be back. Feels good to be back. I'm excited about what I'm going to be doing with the stream this year. I've got a few basic ideas that I'm planning on just kind of putting up a video on the YouTube channel to give like a detailed rundown of everything that I am hoping to achieve with the stream this year. But it kind of boils down to I'm going to try and do more mixing up exactly specifically what I'm doing on any given day of the week. I've updated my schedule on my Twitch channel, and so you can kind of see the rundown of how I want to break up the weeks. But it really comes down to feeling like I want to have more fun doing a wider variety of things, and so I'm going to start trying to keep it pretty regular and structured in terms of what I do on any given day. Just so that way anyone who's watching and likes some of my content but not all of it can sort of know exactly when to tune in or which video uploads to YouTube to check out, and provide that stuff there. But yeah, no, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited about it. It should be a good time. And yeah, I'm feeling good about it. Hopefully everyone else had a nice holiday season. Perhaps it's still going for you depending on what your schedule in life is like, or perhaps it was done a long time ago or whatever. But however it panned out for you, I hope it went well. And I hope that you're like me and that you're feeling good and largely optimistic about a year moving forward. I know world events, I try to not worry too much about world events on my channel because Lord knows we get bombarded with enough of that stuff everywhere else in the world. so I do my best to not do that. But I will just say that things are certainly challenging as ever. But I feel like the world is at a point where we're at least starting to, in some ways, learn how to deal with a lot of the changes that we're facing. So, I don't know. I feel good. Maybe that's just me being sentimental at the beginning of a year, but I feel good about where things are heading, at least in my life, and hopefully at least some of that positivity can project outward towards other people, you included. But enough of me blibber blabbering here. Why don't I go ahead and get us going here? Yeah. Okay, I gotta remember how to do all this stuff here. All right, here we go. Fresh new background for a new month of the new year. Nice crisp white, felt fresh and renewed to me. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm just being sentimental, but there we are. So, to be perfectly honest, I barely remember what we were working on beforehand. It'll take a minute to get back into the flow of things. It's been a couple weeks since I really streamed, but that's okay. We'll kind of get back into it together. What I do remember is that we are working on writing a full-length campaign that takes place in my homebrew world of Zeoria. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give a quick rundown of what that world looks like, and kind of what the gist of the campaign is so far and where it's going, so we can all kind of catch up, and then we'll dive into working on some stuff wherever we left off last time. The kind of important thing to know about this world is that it's a D&D 5th edition themed world for the most part. It's meant to be a world that is just generally fantasy, and you could really just slap on whatever rule blocks feel appropriate for you to use at any given time, whether it's Pathfinder, 3.5 edition, whatever you want to do. It's kind of meant to be a generalized fantasy thing. Hey there, Howell. I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for asking. Hopefully all is well with you. But yeah, so that's my world. It's kind of like a post-calamity type world. There was a historic event in which all the different realms of reality got kind of ripped apart and mixed together and caused a lot of chaos and damage to the world. Not a whole lot of civilization survived. That civilization that did survive is pretty pinpointed to just a handful of cities throughout the world. But as time goes on, the world sort of heals a bit, and we bring ourselves to the present timeline that this campaign is taking place in which there are a lot of excursions for various purposes out into what is known as the wilds. The campaign that we're working on is one such excursion in which a group of people from this city up here, Fosvik, are trying to build a new, or not build so much as just map out and establish a trade route down to this city of Mofafetting down here. Historically, up until this point, any trade that would happen would have to go all the way along this established trade route. There's basically one established series of trade routes throughout the world that have been protected, and even that has been dangerous. But now that things are sort of getting to be a bit calmer in the wilds, there's a lot of hope that maybe some new things can be established. So that's where we are, and our campaign in particular takes place in this hex right here. Felt like a good hex to write a campaign in, just because we have such a wide variety of different environments to play with. Gives us a lot of opportunity to do a lot of fun, diverse things for our players as we're going. So we're doing that, and we can now bring up, this is the more detailed map of that region for us to kind of look and play in. The basic premise of this campaign is that, again, we have this this effort to build a new trade route that's kind of moving its way down here. Unfortunately, within the Golden Wind Plains, which is kind of over in this region here, that is the dominion, the domain of a dragon who is, as dragons are, pretty protective of his area. And he's all like, hey, I don't really want you guys to do this. All you humanoids come in here and you guys do things like war and, chopping down forests and stuff, and I'd prefer you didn't do that to my domain. And so the people desperate to get their trade route are just like, well, let's cut a deal. What if we do something for you so that you let us build this road? Dragon then says, all right, well, how about this? There's this Hall of Wisdom that is magically guarded and requires a few keys to get access to. I have not been able to find the keys because they're hidden, and I'm busy, taking care of other business within my domain. If you guys can get me those keys, there's 4 of them. If you can get me those 4 keys and get me into this Hall of Wisdom, then I will let you go ahead and make your trade route. So, our players, naturally accepting the call to adventure, agree to do exactly that. They start off, so we've got a small city right here, Novotorkladny. Just a small city that's in place. I mean, primarily we put it there because we needed a civilization, a safe place for our players to go to and do trading and stuff like that. But story-wise, it was established there so that way resupply missions for this effort here only have to go back up here rather than all the way, like, weeks of travel back north to the main city. So players go there, are able to do a little research, find that the first key is hidden among the giants up on the mountaintops around in this area. So again, answering the call to adventure, they go to this area and find that first key and then come back. Second key, they find out, is hidden with the dwarves in the abandoned city of Kogdaral here. When they get there, they find that it's not so abandoned. It's now kind of the realm, or not realm so much. It's the home city of a large faction of Duragar, who have, taken over it because the dwarves abandoned it when the unhinging, the calamity happened. And so they're like, hey, this seems like a pretty convenient place for us to take over, so they did. So our players get there and kind of have the opportunity to do either some espionage or some deal-making, some dickering and dealing with Duragar, depending on how they choose to approach it. They have the opportunity for that, and eventually learn that the key is most likely hidden in the vaults of Kogdaral, which are a ways north under the mountains of travel, kind of just underneath this large sort of lake that is buried among the mountains. So that's kind of what we're working on right now. We're working on building a large dungeon, which is kind of just a series of smaller dungeons of their travels into these vaults to find this key. And now, if I'm remembering properly, we can pull up our map here. We have kind of the framework of all of these areas that we're working on for this series of dungeons, but we have, we've got framework, and framework. That's right. Okay, so we've got all of our frameworks, and we had started kind of painting all the details that we need for this dungeon. So I see no reason to worry about doing anything other than continuing where we left off. That's the whole idea. So let's go ahead and do it. We can pull up our notes page here. And we can kind of see. So we have details. For the first 5 rooms, looks like. And then does that match up with what we have? Okay, 5 and then 6. That's right. Okay, and I feel like I remember. I feel like I remember that we were going to put our collection of injured Duragar in here for our players to kind of work with as unlikely allies if we wanted to. Hey, Siri Snow? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Yes, I agree. Dungeon Draft is awesome. This is a fantastic tool. I'm a big fan of it. There are a lot of other really good tools as well, but this is the one that I've sort of landed on, and it's I'm a big fan of it. I'm always singing my praises for it. I like it. I think the reason that I like it is it works very specifically and intentionally with the Foundry virtual tabletop system, which is what I use to play with my players. And so because of that integration, it's just kind of a no-brainer to use it and stick with it for me. But I agree with you completely. It's an excellent tool. What I really need to do is I need to start investing in and playing around with other asset packs, because I still am just rocking the standard assets that it comes with, and it would be really fun if I could start getting a little bit more variety in there so not everything looked quite the same all the time. A lot of my interiors all kind of end up looking the same. Lots of bookshelves everywhere because they're good ways to add detail and add interesting layouts and stuff without taking up a whole lot of functional space for players to move around and like battle in and stuff. So it'd probably be a good idea for me to start doing that, but one thing at a time. So okay, so we wanted to do room 6 here, and this one is so this is where we put the injured Durgar. And so it's largely a safe area. So I always like to break up all of the rooms, kind of have a theme, whether it's a combat, whether there's a puzzle, whether there's a trap hidden in there, whatever it is. I always like to sort of have a theme to a room, so that way there's kind of like a focused bit of stuff for the players to be doing in that room. And this one is a safe room, and just because, everyone needs a breather from time to time, I like to put in a safe room there so players can have an area to go to, and an area that they find where they're not, under threat of life and limb just for walking through the door. And so that's what we're going to describe here. And really this room is exactly that. It's a room in quotations. This is actually an open area within the alleys, because I suppose it's okay to kind of quickly re-describe. So this whole area here is part of the abandoned part and unreclaimed part of the underground dwarven city. And so it looks a little funky because, normally you would have that be all dug out with caves and everything, but I always imagine the dwarven cities to be more like just if you were to take like a Galleria type mall, right, where there's a bunch of sidewalks and everything, or really even just a regular mall, where you have like a bunch of internal buildings that are all contained within one larger like structure, is kind of how I always imagined it. So I tried to recreate that idea here, where we have our larger exterior wall, which is more so just the wall of the mountain that's been carved out, right? Or rather, that's the wall that hasn't been carved out, and inside of that is what's been carved out. We have doors here that are just kind of like choke points between different parts of the city for the sake of defenses and all that kind of stuff that the dwarves would have set up. And then in here, so it's like we have this wall that encases everything, but then we can see we have different alleys that go around surrounding different shops, because this area is meant to kind of be like a shopping center part of town. And so we have kind of like a main walkway here. It's almost got like a kind of like a Diagon Alley type of feel to it, is kind of how I imagine it. Maybe a little less stylized like that, with some better measured and sharper angles. I never understood that about the Harry Potter world. They visualized it like, do wizards not have any sense of like right angles or or like a tape measure or something? Because like all their stuff is always so crooked. It's like, I guess they kind of have magic to compensate for the lack of structural integrity that would result in, but I don't know, I just always thought that was kind of silly. But anyway, I'm sure most people aren't as bothered by it as I am. At any rate, it's kind of the atmosphere we have going on here. And so this area that we're going to fill in here is meant to be kind of a back alley between a few of these shops. And actually, to that effect, I want to... Let's see, we're going to go to our portal tool here, and we're just going to put little doors. We're going to put one more door. Hold on, I do want to snap those to the grid. Hey, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Glad you're here and having a good time. Glad to have you here. So if we put the door right there, because it's kind of meant to be, like I say, it's like a back alley that kind of connects. We got a bar up here. We got like a little bookstore, knickknacks type of place here. And then, I don't know what this place is going to be, but it's going to be another little shop there. And it's like back alley, so we can put like the rubbish bins there. It's a little modern in terms of like atmosphere and feel, but it adds familiarity and it's fun. And it's fantasy. It can be whatever the heck we want. We just explain it like some weird magical realm, like crossover between modern and like fantasy dimensions. I don't know. It's whatever. It's the beauty of homebrew. You can do whatever the heck you want with it. I always try to have at least some form of internal logic to mine, but that usually ends up being more contained to like the metaphysics and like the laws of how magic and stuff works. In terms of environment, I tend to be pretty, as long as an environment is consistent with itself. So like all of these dwarven areas will have the same feel compared to one another, But within this world, there are a whole lot of different areas that have different atmospheres, and we can even see that within our area at large, right? Because we have, we're doing underground, and the dwarven areas are going to have one feel about it. But then when we get up here into the forest and they're dealing with the drow, the dark elves and stuff up there, that's going to have a very different aesthetic to it. And I like doing that just because it helps paint more distinct pictures for the different chapters that players are going to experience. But I don't know. I guess I'm just kind of rambling about it now, trying to justify my own lack of consistency here. Maybe I should just not worry about it and be like, it's my world, my rules. Deal with it. Anywho, so we got this back alley here, and what I want to do with it is this is going to be a little area where a collection of Duragar scouts who have been injured and are unable to really fight their way back to the city proper, which is further down this way, are kind of holed up here. Because as our players are making their way through this part of the city, they'll eventually reach a suburban part of dwarven housing, which will then eventually lead to just sort of a series of caves that eventually leads to the deeply buried and well hidden and protected and locked up dwarven treasure vaults is where they're going. And so the Duragar naturally would want to get access to those too, but they haven't had success because when they send scouts, most of the time they end up dead. Or so they assume. And so a group of those scouts who have not ended up dead but are too injured to make their way back are kind of holed up here, just trying to heal up enough to make their way back. And so our players are going to have the opportunity to sort of interact with them and do stuff with them just to add a little bit of roleplay intrigue to what they're doing otherwise in this dungeon. So what I want to do for that is I want to get our object tool here, and do we have, if they have in here, excuse me, they have just a rubbish pile or a trash or garbage. I'm looking for just something that's random objects. I suppose I would go with I could just go with barrels. I guess barrels and crates will work just fine. There's going to be sort of a barricade that they'll have set up, that these Duragar will have set up in this area. So as a way to sort of help themselves stay safe from everything, right? Because they've got these doors kind of blocked off and this area barricaded, and I have a mind to make these half barricaded as well, so that players that want to get through are going to have to put some effort into getting through the door. The doors will be locked, but really just barricaded. So I guess what I can do is I'll just search for crate here, plate. I guess it's kind of the search function. I absolutely love Dungeon Draft, but their search engine is the goofiest thing. It just it finds things that when you search a word, it just finds anything with at least 3 letters that you're looking for in conjunction or in sequence with each other, and it just results in some really goofy search results that cracks me up. So what we'll do is we'll put a couple crates here. And just to make it look a bit more realistic and interesting, and do that, and then grab this narrower one here, and just do that, and then go back to over. If you just kind of pile them up there, it doesn't have to look too complete or anything. It just has to look like a pile of crap. That's meant to be a blockage for the route so that things can't get through. Why shouldn't we do that right there? Because that would be, truthfully, that would be a good way to fortify things. You don't just want to go up. You want to make it you want to make it horizontal too, that barricade, tall and deep. Because if it's one big tall stack, an enemy could just push it over in theory. So it's if it's 3 or 4 crates deep, then it's much less likely to just go for a spill as soon as someone puts up a little adversity against it. So we can do that, and then set those up like that. Grab again one of these small suckers there, maybe just to make things a little interesting. Barrel, spelled barrel wrong, but it still came up with it. So I guess I shouldn't make fun of the search engine too hard here. It may come up with goofy things based on how you spell it, but at least it can manage my misspellings. can tell that I'm that I have no ego about my writing abilities, that I'm willing to sit here and just call out my own misspellings while I'm trying to claim to be someone who is capable of demonstrating how to write something. There we go. Okay, so there's a nice barricade there. And that's perfect too, because if our players start exploring these alleyways, like, that's really perfect, because these objects, the way Foundry works is it won't actually block their sight with these objects here. These objects are just part of the background map, as opposed to actually being physical barricades. Like, I would have to put a wall or something there for it to be a physical barricade. But I don't want to do that, because in theory they could climb through and over these things. But if we block it here well enough, then at the very least players will likely, without even being told to, will like obey that there's a blockade there, and they'll stop right there. And so if the guys are all hanging out in here, right, then the angle of vision, which Foundry does a really good job of doing, like, you know, live updating line of sight and everything, they won't be able to see that. Like, it'll block the angle will block them from seeing in there. So this actually works out really well. And like I say, I think just the psychology of how people will respond to seeing a barricade there, even if it like functionally isn't there, will be a really good asset to keeping them under control. Now, I just want to, because it's supposed to be like, you know, for like, that's the whole point of this area back here, is it was meant to be like, you know, the alley where all the garbage pails are. We're just gonna put barrels there and pretend they're garbage pails. We can probably go to like food or something and just like pile up some random food items to make it look like a rubbish pail or something. And here's where I demonstrate just how obsessive about these things I am. Needlessly so. That's a little big. But it's like, damn it, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. So there we go. See, it's like a rubbish bin. I don't know. How often do I do world building streams? I try to stream as long as my day job that I actually make money at, as long as that one doesn't get in the way. That one has to take priority for me. But as long as that is giving me the time to, I try to stream 4 days a week: Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Starting this new year, my hope is to add a bit more variety of the type of stuff that I work on for the streams. With Mondays, I think I had decided Mondays and Thursdays are going to be about sort of working on a full-blown campaign like we're working on right now, and then Tuesdays and Fridays being days sort of devoted towards various other sort of like side components to a homebrew campaign. So things that are still important, but not like actually the campaign itself. So things like working on sort of the you know, adding detail and stuff to my homebrew pantheon that I use, where it's like kind of springboarding off of the existing 5e pantheon and stuff like that to make something a bit more detailed, a bit more functional for my world and how I run my games and stuff. You know, how I go about coming up and trying to balance various homebrew mechanics and stuff, like house rules that I use for my players and my games. So because I want to add more of that stuff, because I've so far really been hyper-focused on the actual long-form campaign, which is a lot of fun, but there's a whole lot more that goes into it. And so when people sort of ask me how I come up with my process, like it feels like an incomplete answer to only be writing the campaign, because there's so much that goes on behind it. So I'm going to try and be adding more of those with this new year. You know, new year, new time, new motivations, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, as a baseline, just to not rant about barely related things as I try to answer your question, to just answer the question, I try to stream Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday at the same time. It's Eastern time zone is what I am in, so that's what I base it off of. Starting Eastern time zone, 11:30 a.m., going until about 1:30 p.m. Is when I do my writing streams. And then after that, on those same days, from 1:30 to 3:30, I do gaming. But like I say, that's all very dependent on making sure that my day job doesn't inhibit me from doing that, because the fact is I got to pay the bills first. As much as I would love to have this be my primary priority, this is not a money-making venture for me. This is a creative personal endeavor that I love doing and want to commit time to because I consider it important for me to exercise my creative sides. But I don't know. That's more about my life. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, I guess. But yeah. And if you want regular updates about, if I have to cancel a stream or if I'm going to end up doing a special time stream or something like that, I do have a Discord server that you are more than welcome to get yourself hooked up with. You can find the link to that on my Twitch channel. And I try to, at least every day that I would stream, either give a heads up that I'm about to go live or, just let everyone know that I won't be streaming that day because of this, that, or the other thing. But that's the general thing. How is... Oh, because it says, because it's a wood statue. I was like, how did the statues come up with food? But, okay. Alright, so we got that there. We do need to add some sort of light source here. Otherwise, it's going to be pitch black, which I'm not extremely opposed to, honestly, because I think that's actually thematic. I think it would actually be pretty thematic for the Durgar to just be content to sit there and like pitch black, and our players would have to deal with that. But the thing that I've found is that if I enforce that too tightly, it just ends up being really frustrating for players because it turns into a situation where, like, if you're sitting here and doing all of this in real time, it's easy enough to kind of remember the layout of a place, because like they would, in theory, their characters would spend maybe 2 hours in this area doing stuff, and so in 2 hours it'd be easy enough to remember, like, oh yeah, if I turn around I'll find this building. But if that gets spanned out over a couple weeks, it's really easy for players to forget things that their characters would know. So if I add light, because of the dynamic way that Foundry handles lighting and line of sight and visual cues and stuff like that, if you sort of add these things in here and add an excuse for there to be a stronger source of light, it makes it easier for players to kind of see and visualize what they're looking at, and it gives them something a bit just something a bit more firm to grasp onto as they're trying to understand the environment that I'm creating for them. So it's not super realistic for there to be a lot of light. I would almost prefer it thematically for there to not be light. But it's not just about, like, if I were doing this without any intention of ever... Actually, no, it'll be easier. I'm going to do it differently. Like, it would be... Like, I'm not just making this here for the sake of doing, stroking my own ego. I do plenty of other things for that. I'm making this game for myself and my friends to play and enjoy. So I have to kind of consider what they want and everything like that. And so we add some extra light and stuff here. So we'll just say that they've got a collection of candles that adds low light there, and it's not exactly low light the way I have it set up there, but that'll satisfy them. I am insisting upon keeping the alleys like pitch black. Like, there would not be random torches lit and maintained within a back alley that was never intended for people to use. It's just structurally that's how the construction of this world that I'm working on pans out. So we can do that. And honestly, I don't know that we need a whole lot else. I guess we can just kind of give it more of a camp feel if we wanted to. We can go to our object tool here and search for, if we go to camp here, we can just like put on a couple of these like bedroll type of things. What the heck is that? Oh, it's a spit roast. Like, we can just put like, lay down a couple of these things here. If we do that, and then like one right there or something like that. And then they just like, I'm planning on having there be a few more than just 3 Durgar that are there, but they would probably be taking turns using the few bedrolls that they still have in their possession that are still in usable shape, because a couple would be always keeping guard, keeping watch. So we can just kind of leave that there. I mean, realistically, they would probably have some sort of cooking stuff, but I actually don't know that they would, because I don't know that they would be super stoked about having a large enough fire that would be caused by a campfire. And it seems more likely that they would just, like, pilfer food and stuff in whatever way they can. No, you know what? I am going to put that there. They would just, like, quench the fire and keep it not lit when they're not actively using it, because you can still cook things on like hot embers even if you don't really have a flame going. So they would probably still do that. So I take it back. We'll put that there for them. And I think that does it. I think that does what I visually want this area to look like. Just like, because I really want it to just look like a messy campsite, because it's what it is. Right? It's a messy campsite that a bunch of injured dudes are like hiding in. So I just want to invoke that feeling, and I feel like this is doing a pretty decent job of that right now. So probably call it good there. So now we got to write up our details here. Not a whole lot to hide about this area. What I am going to say here is I always add my DM notes in a different color just so that way they stand out. And I try to put the DM notes like before they're relevant, which is to say, like, I'm going to put the DM notes here before I read off the details about this area to the players, so that way I remember to keep in mind things that I should and shouldn't say and things that mechanically are going to happen. So for this, I want to open up with DM notes and just mention the Duergar hiding here have barricaded the doors. Players will need to either bust in or be let in. And then if they're going to bust in, I feel like we don't need it to be too difficult. We'll just do DC like 14 for like a strength check to just bash it in or something. Well, 14's a little tough for them. This is meant to be just level 5s. And I don't want to... It's always tricky trying to figure out exactly what to set the dice checks to. Especially when it's like when you're trying to consider important stuff versus essential stuff. Because like I try to not put anything in there if it's not going to have at least some potential importance. But there are still plenty of things that are like important items that are not essential items to the campaign and to their progress. And so it's always tricky to try and figure out how to do these things and know the balance. I err on the side of making it a bit easier for players to do it, just because for me it's more fun to have my players successfully interact with everything that I put into the game. I mean, that's why I put it there, because I think it would be really fun for them. So I try to not have things be too hard, but you do still want to put those checks there just so that there are some stakes. Otherwise it's not really playing a game. It's just kind of like reading a book aloud, So we add a few things there, but I don't feel like this needs to be particularly tough. I mean, they would barricade it, but they are all injured, so it's not like they're sitting there pulling off Master Craftsman level stuff. So we'll just add that little note there. And then I just add some flavor text. Stuff that I always try to write this out, like the stuff, the descriptions of the rooms and everything like that. I always try to write that pretty descriptively, pretty narratively. So that way, if I'm DMing and my brain just isn't in a come up with things, fly by the seat of my pants kind of way, my brain just isn't there, then I have something that I can read off that'll still offer that sort of like painted picture, mental image to my players, so they can understand things and make it a little flowery. We don't want it to all sound like some sort of like medical journal while we're reading it. We're playing a game after all. It's a narrative game. I mean, it'd be pretty boring if Skyrim didn't have beautiful set pieces for you to walk through and it was all just like a bunch of like blocky rooms that you walked in. So let's say we'll just say the doors leading to this back alley are held shut by planks. Are held firmly shut by something on the outside. They are unlocked. Oops, my goodness, my fingers are clumsy today. Shows I haven't been doing much writing in the past couple weeks through the holidays. They're unlocked, but will require some force to open. Access to this segment of the alley is blocked by deep piles of barrels and crates. Deep piles of barrels and crates that are piled to create a barricade between the two parts of these alleys. I guess I don't know. That's not very. It's not very. That doesn't flow very well. But I'll edit it later. We're just trying to get back into the swing of things here. We're just gonna go ahead and let it be stream of consciousness and worry about editing things if necessary later. As long as it gets the important information, I'm gonna call it good enough. It's not just good. It's good enough, and that's the important part. Okay, so access to this segment of the alley is blocked by deep piles of barrels and crates that are piled to create. God, no, I can't. No, okay, that's just too bad. That's just poor writing. I'm not a trained writer, but I can do better than that. This is to the segment of the alley is blocked and crates. Crates to separate and so this segment of the deep piles of barrels and crates, resulting in a fairly well fortified segment of alley. Boom, there we go. Okay, that's a bit better. It's a bit better. At the very least, I like it better, and really that's what we need to proceed. Because if I'm not satisfied with it, I'll just sit here and hem and haw over it, and you guys will be stuck with that. Which means that you guys will just leave, or at least I hope that that's what you guys should do, and just sit around and watch me fumble over whatever the heck I'm doing. All right, so we got that. Inside of this makeshift stronghold are, we're gonna say four Duergar individuals. However, even just a quick glance shows that these four are in a bad way. All of them have serious bandaging, covering up various head wounds and injured limbs. They look fierce, but unlikely to be able to put up a good fight. So we can just kind of do that there. So that gives us a little description. And then we're just going to put as little DM notes here. We'll just say role play discussions with the Duergar. They were sent to find the vaults. We'll say, let's see. I'm just trying to come up with a little bit of a backstory for these guys. It's not super essential, exactly what it is. But I'm trying to give them the ability to have information that can be beneficial to the player, so that way they have a reason to not just, like put them down like an injured horse or something. We're sent to find the vaults. Made it to the vault doors and found them locked and magically sealed. We'll say have vague ideas on what is needed to get in, but did not stick around long as a Kruthic. Stick around long as a Kruthic found them and killed half the party, while these four survived with serious maiming. And we'll just add the little note here as well. Cannot physically fight their way back to the city proper. Will begrudgingly begrudgingly, is that how you spell begrudgingly? Begrudgingly, yeah, okay. Will begrudgingly accept help back to the city if players offer it as part of a deal or something like that. So it's like they'll accept that. They'll accept that because they know otherwise they're gonna die, and these guys aren't quite at the level of going down with the ship fanatic that some Durgar might be. And the reason they're not at that level is because we need a narrative reason for them to actually interact with players and do stuff with players, rather than just yell things in in undercommon and get themselves killed. So now the reward for this room, every room always has some sort of challenge and some sort of reward in it. It's how I like to structure things. I find it just, I don't know, it creates a good balance, and it makes sure that each room kind of feels fun and worthwhile to the players. If rooms only have danger, or rooms never have rewards, or if it's always just money, eventually there will come a point when players just aren't interested in exploring the entirety of the dungeons you make. And so I always try to diversify exactly what the rewards are within any given room, just to keep them coming back for more, baby. So in this one, the lore is going to be from the injured Durgar, and what we'll say here is I'm just going to put this one as a DM note here, and what we'll do is just go the injured Durgar offer a lot of information regarding the Durgar people, and we'll just say are pretty guarded about most things, but will share general info, and good rolling can convince them to open up about more details. And so I'm going to do two things here. We're going to say free details. How long Durgar have been there? Let's see, how long Durgar have been there, and how they came to be special. I think that would be pretty counterproductive to what we're trying to do with these guys, but I like your enthusiasm. So how long the Durgar have been there and how they came to be. It can offer, can discuss Durgar hierarchy. Is that right? Is that how you spell it? Yeah, hierarchy, and politics, stuff like that. And then needs persuasion. We can say Durgar goals long term, weaknesses in Durgar systems and stuff like that. I don't know. We're just trying to give some generalized notes and ideas, just to make sure that, if it does come to just sort of yes-anding your way through a lot of conversations with players because they start getting curious, which I hope they do, that way we just kind of have some good general guidelines so that we don't accidentally overplay our hand or accidentally, reveal more stuff than what our players want, or at least, more importantly, don't reveal things that we need to have our players find out later. We don't want to accidentally spoiler them about stuff too soon. So we can just do that, and that kind of gives us everything we need there. So I think that's good. I think that's real good. So now we'll start our next room. So this is going to be a puzzle room here. We got to come up with some sort of interesting puzzle. So I like to do puzzles and traps. And there's a lot of crossover between those two concepts in D&D, a puzzle and a trap. The way the way I sort of make them distinct, I try to keep it very, because the other thing too is like there's crossover between those two, and the concept of a puzzle and a trap in D&D can be very, very broad, right? Like a trap can be a tripwire, it can be a hole in the ground, it can be a group of people waiting around the corner, right? There's a whole lot of things that can qualify as a trap. And so I try to not make anything too detailed to exclude potential, like, traps based on just sort of, like, what things could serve to make a dungeon more interesting. And the same goes for puzzles. Like, a puzzle could literally be a puzzle sitting on the ground. A puzzle could be someone asking riddles. A puzzle could be, a puzzle could just be trying to figure out how to free an object from a wall, and there's not actually a designed puzzle. It's more so just like a challenge there. So basically, the way I like to sort of differentiate them in my head that helps keep me thinking about things from a broad perspective is a trap is something that upon being revealed to players, or like a trap is revealed to players as it's causing harm to them, right? So it's like there's a hole in the ground, and that's revealed to players as they are either avoiding it narrowly or falling down it, right? Like that's what makes the hole in the ground a trap. The trap of a bunch of enemies waiting around the corner, it's revealed to them that that's there as they either discover it and are trying to figure out how to avoid getting hurt, or as they walk past the guys and get bonked on the head because the guy was waiting around the corner, right? So like that's what a trap is, whereas a puzzle is something that can cause harm if players handle it incorrectly. So like it's, so maybe there's a puzzle where it's like, okay, there's a fancy dancy lock on this chest that you need to figure out how to puzzle your way through, and it might be rigged to hurt you, but it's not a trap because players are aware that this could be a problem, as they approach it. They have the opportunity to circumvent that stuff while knowing that bad things could happen if they fail, is sort of the idea there. And causing harm to them also doesn't necessarily have to be physical harm. It could be that they're trying to get an object, but if they fail to solve the puzzle, that object will be destroyed. Things like that. So that's it's really broad, and I know that doesn't really describe it in too much detail, but that's kind of the point, right? That's kind of what I'm going for here. Is I don't want to pigeonhole and have it always be like, oh yeah, always if there's a trap, it's pretty much always, some sort of scythe blade that comes down and hits them, right? Like you don't want to always be doing the same traps over and over again within your dungeons. Semi-permanent ability stat reduction. That's a really good way to utilize traps. See, that's traps or puzzles. So like that could be a result that shows up in either a trap or a puzzle, right? Because it's like the distinction between a trap or puzzle to me isn't necessarily whether it does or doesn't do harm, and more so about whether that harm is what reveals the thing versus that harm is a potential result of it, right? So like a trap will always cause harm when it's revealed to players. So it's like, an ability, like if there's a trap that's like a spell circle on the ground that if they walk through it, it causes something, that's a trap, versus if there's a spell circle that's part of a door, so if you open the door and that would cause, that would cause that to happen, that's not a trap so much as a puzzle, because it becomes a puzzle to try and get past that door without triggering that thing. And so there's a lot of bleed over, there's a very wide intersection on this Venn diagram between a trap and a puzzle, and they can look a lot the same, and in fact a trap can turn into a puzzle and vice versa. But like I say, the general idea is always that a puzzle is, I think that's a good way to describe it. Cognitive interaction separates the two. Like a trap is something that is hidden from the players, whereas a puzzle is something that's revealed from the get-go. Right, and so it's like a puzzle is like, this bad thing will happen if you fail, whereas a trap is like, this bad thing happened, sucks to suck. So that's kind of the distinction. I think that's a really good way to describe it. I'll probably steal that moving forward because it's much quicker to say that than it is to do what I've just done and spend 6 minutes giving an impromptu TED Talk about it. So when we're thinking about a puzzle, like I don't I oftentimes don't go into it with a specific puzzle in mind. A lot of times I'll start off just by looking at what area we have here. So we've got, in this area here, this is going to be a storefront. We can add a couple of our details here right now. We're going to go to our building tool here and just get like a door. So there's going to be a front door to this area. Front door. And there's not really, so this is all underground, so there's not really a need for windows in the sense of letting in daylight, but windows can be very helpful in the sense of, well, if it's going to be a storefront, maybe they have like a display window or something to show off their wares or whatever. So we'll just put a couple windows there to be like a display front type of situation. See, we got that going for kind of all of them. This one's got a nice big corner display. It looks kind of funky because they don't have windows that are, you know, wider than one square, so it kind of looks a little wonky doing it that way, but ultimately what it comes down to is no one cares. No one's really going to be thinking about that. Players are unlikely to really even notice whether there's windows there at all unless they ask for windows to look through. So trying to think of a puzzle here that would be kind of appropriate and interesting. And one thing that can also be an important part of that is, let's think about, so we're gonna put the compass there. So the compass, the way I use compass in these games when I'm writing this, is for anyone who's not aware, I use compass in a very similar sense to how the compass is used in, you know, your classic old school Zelda dungeons, where you find the compass, and what that does is it reveals where there are important objects and stuff. And that's sort of like a house rule game mechanic that I've added to my games, because my players tend to be pretty completionist about things. And so if I add a little tool that gives them sort of like a checklist of sorts, then that kind of helps them feel more confident about moving on to different areas, because either they know that they'll have a reminder that there's stuff for them to still do, or they have the assurance that they have indeed found everything. You know, and so it's like, but I always hide it in one of the rooms that they have to work their way towards, right? Because I don't want to just give them the answers. But if they do exploration and handle, you know, whatever challenges they need to handle to get it, then I like to reward that. So what I'm thinking is, because we have that hidden, we have that compass in there, an important object hidden in this room, I'm thinking we can probably just take ourselves down the standard puzzle route of having there be some sort of like safe or chest that's locked in there. And I'm thinking what we can do is we can try and do like a number combination chest, where somewhere hidden throughout this shop are clues or components of whatever, you know, whatever the solution to that is. You know, like it ends up being the birthday of you know, the former shop owner's wife or something like that. You know, one of those, a very like Fallout approach to things, right? Where it's like if you explore and find the right note, it'll tell you what the clue is. It's not even like exclusive to Fallout. So many games utilize that mechanic because it's a good one. It's a good one that rewards investigation without requiring any particular like riddle acumen on the part of the player, right? Because you don't want player knowledge to limit their access to things. It's supposed to be about the characters, and the players get to just enjoy the results of it. So if we hide things like that, basically it's just like, yeah, go ahead and, you know, roll your investigation. Oh, you found this clue. You know, you found that clue. And so you give them kind of bits and numbers and stuff to find what they need. So what we can do is let's add just a little description of this room here. We don't need to put any DM notes up the front here. Yeah, the inside of this shop demonstrates clearly that it was once a tailor's shop. A tailor's shop. I don't even know if you have to. I don't even know if tailor would need to be capitalized in this situation. I mean, we're kind of using it as a proper noun, right? But like, it's not. I don't know. Whatever. I'm thinking about it too much. Inside of the shop demonstrates clearly that it was once a tailor's shop. Bolts of various moth-eaten and shredded cloth line the walls and lay scattered on the floor where they've fallen over the years. We'll say behind the counter is a chest with a number lock on it. It appears to require 4 numbers to be opened. Presently, it is locked. There we go. Just in case players try to get like smarmy about it, be like, oh well, I tried anyway just to see if they opened it up and left it open or something like that. So we can say that. And let's add some notes here. So DM notes. First off, if they want to smash it, DC 14 to break it. That makes it a little easy, but like hell, players will try to break things, and if they want to do it that way, then I'm not gonna sit here and tell them they can't. But they'll have to roll decently well to hit it. I always just say it as DC rather than AC and putting health, because like the thing is like the way I see it is if it seems kind of silly to put health on an item, right? I know that's kind of conventional D&D approach to things, to say like, oh yeah, this door has this much HP. And like there can be a point to that if there's a specific situation in which like, you've got a real Michael Myers situation going on where they're being chased by a guy who's coming after them with a knife and the door is locked. It's like, okay, yeah, do they hit it well enough and destroy the door to get through? But as a general rule, players aren't trying doors for the first time in the middle of combat. So there's not really a huge time constraint on it. So it's like if it's possible for them to hit it, they can eventually break it down. Unless we're talking about a full-blown like iron door that is like just an inch thick slab of metal, like for the most part, yeah, they're going to be able to break it open. They're going to be able to break open a wood door. It'll happen eventually. So I always just kind of do the a standard DC check. It's like, okay, yeah, roll to attack it. And if they hit it, it's like, yeah, you splinter the handle off and the door swings open on its hinges. You just give it to them that way. Because then the flip side of it is if they fail to smash it, so if someone tries to do that and they fail to do it, in the spirit of the game, you can just be like, you're not able to bust it open, and for the most part, as long as you've got good players, they'll respect that, because they also recognize that, if you don't have to deal with those consequences, then there's no point in even having a check in there at all, and there's no point in even having the game, right? If you could just try a million times over to break that thing, eventually the dice will allow you to do it. So you kind of give them that one chance, and the one chance to either hit it. It's like either they hit it and they smash it open, or that wood's pretty sturdy. It looks like it's going to be pretty tough to get at whatever's inside if you just try and smash it. Makes everyone happy that way. So I always just do a DC. Serves as the AC if they try to hit it. So we can do it that way. If they want to open it, they can find the answer based on 3 clues hidden throughout the shop. Clue 1 will say a note from the shopkeeper to his child to remember the wife/mother's birthday, and we'll put a little quote here. It's like, and don't pretend you forgot, because I see you going into the counter chest every day, and the code for that is your mother's birthday. We're just going to go ahead and go with it. We're going to just, like, go standard, easy peasy Sherlock with it. It's like, we might as well, right? Might as well. I don't think I've really done something quite this simple in a little while. So we'll do that. Clue 2. We'll say, another note from the shopkeeper to child that discusses the day of the birthday in question, and we'll just have it be like, hey, wish your mother a happy birthday today, but remember, we're not sharing gifts until her sister comes to visit this Saturday, in parentheses, the 15th. There you go. And then we can just do one more thing. Clue 3. I would want to do it consistently and keep the number there because I'm weird that way. We'll say clue 3, a birthday card from the sister in clue 2, and we'll just have it be like, we'll say, and it says, happy birthday, sis. You being around is the only reason March is worth dealing with. Boom. As in, like, the month. So there we go. I don't know. Like, it's a little convenient for the world of D&D to always just follow our calendar, but I just choose to do it that way just because it keeps things like these types of puzzles accessible, and it makes things a bit easier for players to sort of mentally consider and time out and math out if everything's the same. So we just do that. So there we go. The password is 0315, and there they go. That's actually, that's the Ides of March. How about that? And it wasn't even intending to do that, but there you go. So there we go. We got a good puzzle right there. Easy enough. Easy enough. So we'll do, the only other thing is we want to just put little hiding places. We'll say clue 1 in, let's see here, clue 1 in a drawer of the, clue 1, a drawer of the, in a drawer of the counter that the chest is, we'll say the chest is behind. We'll do that one there. I'm just going to stylistically do it that way because that just seems less confusing to do it that way to me. Okay, so that's where that one is. Clue 2, that's the one talking about the kid. We'll say clue 2 posted on a bulletin board. How do you spell bulletin? Bulletin. There it is. Posted on a bulletin board behind the counter. Just do it that way, quick and easy. And then the last one, we'll say clue 3. We'll say lying on the ground under one of the display, one of the displays of cloth. So it's just like a player's, and so that way we can kind of have them enter detective mode, right? Escape room mode, and like players will have to like specifically say, oh yeah, I'm gonna investigate near this area. So let's see, we'll say hidden throughout the shop. Make sure to have players describe where they're looking specifically, so that it's a bit more detective, detective like in nature. Like, I wouldn't normally have players describe specifically, like, where in the shop are you looking, if they're just like, yeah, I searched the shop for valuables. I wouldn't normally do that, but for the sake of this little mini game in here, we'll go ahead and do that. And I think that works out really well. I think that'll be fun. It's just a fun little thing. And then as a reward, if they can puzzle, get it, puzzle their way through it, they can find the compass here. Oops, I don't want that to be red though. I want that to be just regular black again. Compass, and the way I like to do the compasses are just like some sort of like item that is magical while there's still stuff to find, but then once they find everything, it stops being a magical item, because this is meant to be a game mechanic type of thing, right? So it's like, I like to make it be something like a ring that glows when there's something of value in this room, you know, and it's like, and it only works on this floor and all that kind of stuff, and it's very, very game mechanic. There's not much in the way of lore that explains it properly, but like I say, it's a mechanic that I kind of created and came up with in response to trying to pay attention to what my players were interested in. So it doesn't flow in quite the same way that a lot of things do, that I try to do within the lore. But, you know, recognizing this is really just, you know, not even bashful about being a game mechanic. It's there to just kind of help players and give them something like a fun little tool to use, and that's the end of it. And so I personally have never really seen a problem in doing that every now and then, because after all, what are we doing? We're playing a game. Right? We're playing a game. It's like adding mods to a game, and most people wouldn't say that, oh, you're enjoying it wrong if you add mods, unless you like mod out Dark Souls, because people get real precious about those games. But I digress. I don't know. I don't even have a personal stake in that one. It's just something I noticed. But anyway, whatever. So yeah, so it's very, very blatantly game mechanic, but hey, it works. My players like it. It's an easy enough way to kind of do things, and it just sort of helps everyone sort of have fun with it. So for the compass here, we can just kind of come up with an item. We'll say, let's see. I'm gonna put a DM note here. Hidden inside of the chest that is locked. We'll just do that because we have all the details about how to find it as part of the actual mechanics of this room. So hidden inside the chest that is locked. Inside the chest, you see a few gold coins. We'll say 10 GP, just because players will inevitably be like, "Oh, how much gold?" It's like, I don't know, man. It's like a register. It's just a couple of coins that they didn't grab when they fled during the unhinging. I don't know. Yeah, klepto. And in the corner is a small pin. Small pin still attached to its packaging card, right? Because they always come in, like, they got that little bit of cardboard that they're always pinned to within their little plastic baggie or whatever, right? So it's still attached to its packaging card. On the card is a blurb that says comma, we'll say a shopkeeper's best tool. Keep this pin in sight and know that the brighter it glows, the more valuable the items nearby are. Never be swindled on a trade again. So it's like the concept being that you would hold it up. If there was someone trying to trade an item with you or something, you could just like use that pin as a barometer to be like, hey, this thing's not glowing very bright. Are you sure what you're trying to sell me there is actually all that valuable? Because we can just like say that these things are possible and exist because it's fantasy. We can do what we want. So we'll do that, and then we'll just add our little mechanics here. Mechanically only works on this floor. Tell players its magic is tied to the shop or whatever. I don't know. Just make it clear to the players, like, hey, this is the compass for this floor. It won't work outside of here, but in here, yay, you get clues. Be happy I gave it to you at all. So it's a bit more adversarial than I mean it to be, but so we'll say, mechanically only works on this floor. Players' magic's tied to the shop or whatever. If there is something important still to find in a room, the pin, which looks like we'll say a little mole. I don't know why. It's underground. Why not? It looks like a mole. Pin, which looks like a little mole, glows a pale blue color. I don't know why pale blue. I just thought of it. So there we go. Gives them what they want. Players will like that. Perfect. All right, good enough. I think that's actually a really good puzzle. It's a pretty easy one, pretty basic puzzle, but that's okay because this is the first section of a 5-section dungeon. So we'll have plenty of time to make things get a bit more complicated, a bit more high stakes as they go. Hey, slash key. Slash key, that's a cool name. Happy to have you here. Lurkers are always welcome. Absolutely. I always say I actually find it really flattering that people would come and lurk, because like, to me, like, as someone who is like, when I'm watching streams or YouTube videos, I'm pretty much always watching because I find the person to be pleasant background noise. So I'm always really flattered when people have that same attitude towards me, because I know that means that like I'm a chill, enjoyable presence, and I think that's a really cool thing to aspire to. So anyway, not that I don't love my participants equally as much. Just, I don't know. There's room for everyone. So, perfect. Okay, so just in time for you to be lurking, I am going to take, really quickly, before I continue on, I'm going to take just like a 3-minute break. I got to run to the bathroom. I got to get myself some more beverage. Otherwise, my throat is going to get real dry. It's going to get real hard to keep talking over the next, like 3 hours that I have left streaming today. So I'm just going to take a quick break right now. Like I say, less than 5 minutes. I'll be back very quickly. I appreciate your patience, but plenty more to come. So sit tight. Sit so tight, and I will be right back. Once I figure out, I got to remember how to do all this stuff. It's been like 2 weeks since I streamed. There it is. That's the one. All right, I'll be back soon. All right, time it. That was less than 5 minutes, right? I hope so. I think it was. I don't know. I didn't actually put it on a timer. But if anyone else was checking and measuring, I did my best. So thank you for your patience. I appreciate that. I would love to sit here and never have to move and just be able to sit here and chat with you guys. Unfortunately, my biology and physiology are not on the same page on that one. So not if I'm staying hydrated, which is pretty important to me considering how much I work out and train. So anywho, what are we working on? Right, we got our puzzle room. Now we gotta decorate it. So if we pull up our little thingamadoober here, so we gotta fill out this room. We gotta somehow make it look like a cloth shop, which, oh boy, I didn't really think about how I would present that with the images that are at my disposal here. Oh, we could kind of use this for like bolts of cloth. Hold on, let's unsnap this. Let's first let's go ahead. We just go to used. Right, so we've got table here. We have table. And just like put a little display front right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put like, oh, it's just not quite the right size, but we can do just like a few shelving units, right? That would probably have the different bits of cloth and everything that would presumably be there, right? This doesn't need to be too hyper specific and focused and detailed or whatever you want to say. But if we do that, so excuse me, there's the display right there, right? And there's like a I don't know, we can do like, if we do this, I gotta wait, hold on. I gotta think about, realistically thinking about our space and how one would move around here. Is that super important to make it all that detailed and specific? Because it's all just theater of the mind, but the flip side is like, you want to still sort of like, through imagination, be able to feel like, oh yeah, no, there would totally be room enough to function. So it's like, just with it being a tailoring shop and everything, it's like I imagine there would actually functionally be a second story to this, but I'm not going into that much detail because it's just mechanically so hard to do that on a virtual tabletop system. So it's just not worth it trying to like do a second story for an individual thing within here when really the focus of this whole part of the map is just to move through it and continue on. Like this is a vertical or a horizontal map, not a vertical one. So let's see here. So we can do so if we just kind of do that, that should work out pretty well. That's just fine. That kind of gives them like some counter space, some like workspace that they would use for like cutting cloths and stuff like that. So made the switch to Tailspire. I'm not sure I'm familiar with Tailspire. Is that a virtual tabletop system? I don't recognize that one, because there are so many cool ones that people are coming out with these days, and so a lot of them are gaining a lot of momentum, and they all kind of have different things that they specialize in. So I need to go over here. Let's just pull up. They have like chest or something here. Let's see. Oh. Virtual tabletop not as suitable. What makes it stand out? I'm curious about this. What makes it stand out? I use Foundry, is what I've been using with my friends and my players. So to give context, so what makes it stand out? I'm always curious to learn about more things. Let's see. I need to find just like a chest here that will suffice. We'll put it under here, and we'll go like. There we go. That's the chest. That's what they're looking for. It's 3D. Oh, okay. So like, so do players then? Do they see it from like first-person viewpoint? Then is that how it is? Screenshots of things you make use here. Copy-paste system so creators can share what they make super easily. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. I feel ya. Let's see here. We need to come up. First person can be done free camera. Okay, interesting. So it's almost like it sounds like it's almost one of those systems. And maybe I have heard of it. I just wasn't recognizing the name of it. It sounds like it's a lot like some of the various different efforts that I'm seeing that almost kind of they almost kind of make playing D&D a like video game experience because they let you kind of be in the shoes of your player. So they're trying to make it almost like a freeform creation approach to D&D like as a video game or something like that. I don't know how to describe what I'm visualizing in my head, but I've seen a lot of things like that, and I'm like super interested in those ideas. And I was discussing this actually over the holidays with a friend, where like through the use of like virtual reality, like VR, and a lot of more like having minis and boards. Okay, I feel ya. But yeah, like I was discussing with some friends over the holidays that the world of like virtual D&D in like 5 or 10 years is going to be awesome. It's going to be so amazing, because right now there are just countless systems that are in development for, depending on the experience you want, trying to sort of mechanically improve upon the virtual D&D system. So like, there are some that are really specializing in doing, like you're saying, like having the system mechanics integrated into the game. Some of them that are making it so that you can have like a first-person experience, so it almost turns more into LARPing than it does just playing tabletop RPGs and stuff. And there's a whole bunch of things that are like in that early pre-funding, like donation-based beta, alpha/beta state. There are so many tools that are like that you give it like 5 or 10 more years, the world of virtual D&D is going to be awesome. Like, it's going to be so cool. Like, if you have an Oculus system, you're going to sit there and you're going to be able to go in there, and your DM is going to be able to just sort of like narrate what you're doing as you're like physically walking around, and like you're going to have a pause menu that will then just like in your HUD bring up all of your stats and your abilities and stuff. Like, with a little bit more time, things are going to be so awesome, and I'm really excited to see where a lot of these different tools that different groups are working on come into play. I saw one. This is the one that I'm most excited about, actually. It's actually for playing D&D in person. It's for in-person settings, but it's a system that like makes it so that if you put like specific like recognition systems in place on a touchscreen monitor, and you can lay that monitor down as a tabletop, so that way you can have something like Foundry open, and when you have that touchscreen in place with like everyone's mini will have its own signal, like based on when you put it down, it will signal through that touchscreen which mini is interacting where, so that way like each player moving their mini is like them using their own mouse to move their own mechanical like their own character on the within the virtual tabletop. So that way you can have the virtual tabletop and all of the interactions and like automatic changes it does while playing in person, and have it be this sort of like amazing crossover between all of the awesome parts of being in person, which is that you have your minis, and it's so much easier to role play with each other when you don't have that like slight delay that comes with playing online, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, 3D printing is definitely bringing minis back into play. There's like the only reason I don't use minis as a DM is just because I would have to have so many of them, and so many of them would get used once. Like, it just, even if I were printing my own, it just like economically doesn't make sense for me to do it. But it's like with that type of system in place, like, to me, that would just be such a cool way to play with my friends in person, and it would make it so seamless to go from like playing online to in person. So like it would be, I don't know, there's just a whole lot of really cool things that are in development and on the way for D&D, both in person and online, and I'm so excited about it. It's so cool to see this growth and popularity that this hobby has had. So I think things are going to be really cool because of all these projects that people are working on. Can put custom minis into Tailspire. That's really cool. I mean, lacking assets is a really common thing for a lot of these early access things. And I'm honestly, I'm totally okay with it. And I'm glad that creators are willing to do that and let their asset packs be a little lacking, just because I definitely think it's much more important for them to get the system in place, and then we can worry about having cool customizable things once the system itself is in place. person has made Dark Souls 1 in it. My God. Like, that's really cool. That's the people that go through and recreate those types of things are, like, the passion involved in that, I think, is so cool. I don't know, like, there's just a lot of cool things like that. A lot of cool projects that people are working on these days, and I'm really excited to see sort of where that is going to take us and where that's going to go in the coming years, you know? So I don't know, I'm pretty excited about that. Check this out. We can just like change the color of some of these things, right, to make it look like there's more assets. Right? There we go. If we do that, and then if we go like under, then it's like some of the cloth fell under the table or something like that. Download in a few clicks. It's so cool. That's really cool. That's dedication right there. Dark Souls lends itself pretty well to a tabletop RPG type of setting. I did try playing the Dark Souls board game, and it was a little... It was a while ago that I played it. It was a little repetitive, the way it was structured. So it wasn't... Like, we pretty immediately... What I remember when I was playing it is we pretty immediately... decided to change a few things and like have a few house rules come into play when we were doing that. But I feel like as a tabletop RPG type of situation, it would function a lot better. Just because really what that comes down to is it kind of like in a tabletop RPG setting, Dark Souls just kind of becomes like a grittier version of Monster Hunter, where it's like basically you and your crew go out and fight titans. Which I actually think is a really cool premise for D&D. Like, it doesn't lend itself to like, just setting up a game like that is obviously going to be lacking in, it's going to be lacking in narrative content, like narrative aspects for your players, but in terms of just like a fun dungeon crawl mechanic, like, that would be a really fun way to consistently spend a Friday night with your friends. Like, if you're not into watching the game or whatever, like, just like, you and your friends hang out. It's like, and everyone takes turns being the DM, and they just invent some big horrid monster that it's up to everyone else to like fight and figure out how to do. Like, I actually think that would be a really fun way to spend a weekend with friends. You know, if you guys aren't really interested in a long form narrative experience, maybe because people aren't able to commit consistently to once per week because of work or family or whatever, I've always thought that would be a really fun way to go about still playing. Because you could have people come in and out pretty easily, because it's just like, yeah, this is the monster you're facing tonight. Just like, do it. It'd be really cool. Alright, okay, so you got me geeking out about all of the other cool tools and stuff in development. I haven't mentioned a whole lot about what I'm working on. Just putting in the lights, throwing on these things to look like cloth swatches that can be lying around. This one doesn't need to be, like, when you think about the nature of like a cloth shop and like a tailoring shop, really what it would be more about is just having space for the people who, you know, make things and cut the cloth and sew things. Just, they need workspace. So it would really just be tables and then like shelving units that have bolts of cloth. And those don't look exactly like, if you've ever been to a shop that has bolts of cloth, it doesn't really look like bookshelves, but those are what's available to us, so we'll just call it good there. And honestly, I feel like that's all we really need. We've got a little chest peeking out there. I guess the only other thing that I wouldn't mind doing is I'm going to go back to our object tool here. I think, yeah, we've done this. I want to just put this like poking out there, right? Because that's going to be like our birthday card that's hidden. I like to try and visually add those little clues about, like, if I mention that there's something that can be found, I like to visually add it in there just as like a little Easter egg of sorts to players. So it's like, for that, we can do that. And what we can do for this, check this out. This is where we're going to start getting creative here. So we're going to scale this down to maybe 0.3. I want it a bit bigger than that. Let's try 0.5. Perfect. So check it out. And so now we can do, let's see. Okay, here's actually how we want to do this. We want this underneath here. And we'll do that. And then we'll go back to here, because this thing looks kind of like a drawer. So it's like we got a drawer poking out from under the desk, right? So if you're creative with it, you can kind of get some cool stuff going on there. The bulletin board is going to be kind of tough because that's hanging on a wall, so I'm not going to worry too much about that one. But you know, there we go. There, I went the extra mile. So not let it never be said that I don't care enough to take a few extra steps to make things extra enjoyable for my players. I do it because I care. I mean, I do. I don't know why I'm saying that sarcastically. I do care about my players or my friends. So I do care about them, but, you know. I guess the sarcasm is more so that, for some reason, caring about my friends would be worthy of extra praise when it's like, no, that's what friendship is. It's caring about one another. Like, that's the whole point of it right there. Alright. Great. Alright, we got time. We got time for another room here. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, we got an easy battle coming up in here. Alright, that's easy enough to make. Easy battle. That's going to be... So the easy battle's on this floor. We've predetermined all of the easy battles are going to be worth 600 experience points a pop. Or thereabout. So we'll just kind of do that there. That, boom. And then before we do anything, let's just decide. So we got 600 experience points that we got to divvy up. Oh, wait, hold on. No, wait. That was the hard battles. The easy battles are 200 experience points. Excuse me. Glad I noticed that. Alright, so 200 experience points a pop. What have we already done for those? We have 2 steeders and a chitin. And then we have 1 choker. And that's all we have for the easy battle. So that gives us plenty to work with still. We could just do 2 chitins or something like that. I don't really know if I'm pronouncing that right. I've never actually said it out loud or heard it said. I've only ever seen it written down. But we'll throw 2 of those guys in there. And those are worth 100 XP a pop. So put that right there. So we'll just put a little DM note. I always like to just put a little note about primarily like before going in a room, if there's doors, I always put a little note about how successful players are likely to be if they're trying to like sneak in or peek through a door, because it's not like it would be easy enough to just always have like a flat like DC check, like, okay, yeah, like, do you sneak in here or not? But I like to have it be different based on what is going on inside that room, right? Because if you have 2 people, like if people are looking, you know, if they're in a library and they're looking to see if there's anyone in the library, in this room of the library before they go in, and there are 2 people, but they're having a hushed conversation in back, it's going to be easier for someone to sneak in without being noticed. Whereas if there's, you know, 2 people, if there's someone just quietly sitting at the desk looking at the front door, it's going to be hard to sneak in that situation. So I always put just a little note just to remind myself when the time comes that I am playing this campaign with people. I always like to just put a little notes about like, hey, how likely are they to be successful if they try this, that, or the other thing, for the really common things that I know my players are going to do. And I don't know if I've ever had a group of players that didn't eventually reach a point where they just always like, they'll just say like, just assume that we're sneaking in unless we say otherwise, because we're always going to try and sneak in so we can get the drop. Like, it would be like, they could be on a mission where they're going to grandma's house to have tea and cookies, and they'd be like, I'm going to sneak in just in case Graham got a little psycho and wants to attack us. Like, they'll try and sneak in everywhere. Just, it always happens. Because players are naturally little murder hobos, and they'll always eventually end up like in this mindset of, I'm going to try and kill everything before everything tries and kills me. That's just what they do. That's how players are. So, okay. So we'll just say with this one, sneaking in is somewhat difficult, because even though the enemies aren't watching the door. Hold on, I just noticed. I don't know what brighter means. I know what brighter means, but I don't know what brighter means. Okay, even though the enemies aren't watching the door, they are quietly rummaging and will notice even soft noises. So it's like, so we'll say somewhat difficult, and we'll give this one like a 12. So it's like, they're a little more likely to have success than, if they were walking in on 2 guards staring at the door, but, so then we want to do that. And what I want to describe for this one is, this shop was once clearly the shop was once clearly a butcher's shop. Though any fresh meat in here has long since rotted or been picked clean by scavengers. Scavengers? There it is. There still remains an assortment of dried and cured meats in various shelves and containers. Even cured meats are unlikely to last centuries, which is the situation here with this abandoned city. But if Skyrim can get away with having a sealed like cave that hasn't been opened, or like a sealed tomb that hasn't been opened for thousands of years, and you open up a barrel and there's like fresh apples, then I'm gonna say that I can get away with saying that there's cured meat around. And that's just the way it's gonna be. So perhaps this remaining food is what drew the 2 chitines that are rummaging through the shop inside. Boom, there we go. Haha, segue. Pokemon fight music. I always think about that whenever I have my players roll for initiative. I always think about the Pokemon battle introduction. Such a ubiquitous part of my life. That, like, when you enter conflict. Like, hell, half the time when I'm sparring at the kickboxing gym, like, I will sing that when I match up with someone and we square up to work a round or 2 with each other. I'll just joking around say that because it's just like, it's so ubiquitous. It's like, yeah, that's the fighting music. That's the music that comes on when you're gonna fight. All right. So, oops, we want that underlined. So the map here, the map is similar to the compass, where it's like, it doesn't always make sense that there would just randomly be a map of whatever area they're in. Hi, kitty. You want to come snuggle? You can come snuggle. There's a kitty tail. She came to say hi. I know, darling. I know. You want to be on my lap because I've got the electric blanket on right now. You want the extra warmth, don't you? Because the world is a cold, cold place. I agree with you. But, so, anyway, like I was saying, the map is similar to the compass, where it doesn't always make sense that there would just, like, randomly be a map, especially when it's, like, they're invading a mansion, so, like, someone's house. Who, like, has a map of their own house lying around, right? It doesn't always make sense for it to be there. But it's something that my players sort of requested, because for them, it can get frustrating if they don't have the ability to, just as they're thinking about things and trying to visualize and understand things, like we're not used to experiencing a home from a bird's eye view. So seeing the map and only seeing part of it can make it hard to just like spatially visualize. Like I can tell them like, oh, the house is yay big, but if all they can see when they walk in is the foyer, right? Then it's like, oh, that's not, that doesn't help them really perceive and understand where they would be spatially, because that's just not how our brains are wired to think. So I always give them the ability to find a map if they explore an area well enough, right? They can find a map that will then, what I'll do is, like, because we play on the virtual tabletop, I will drag their markers around to let them sort of see where all of the rooms are, without, and I'll always have all the enemies hidden and stuff like that, so that way they don't accidentally get too much information about what's in each room, but that way they can at least they can at least have like that view. Yeah, that would be one of the benefits of 3D space for sure. For sure, I agree completely. But yeah, so that's why I've kind of added that mechanic there. So it's like, it's not like they get it for free every time, because I, as a DM, really like the confusion that adds to them. So this is kind of like a good compromise, where it's like, if you guys are searching through the rooms, there's a chance that if you search well enough, you'll find a tool that will give you what you're looking for out of this. But until you find that item, you got to deal with not knowing, which to me helps kind of with the immersion, because their characters wouldn't really know a whole lot about the area. So that's what the map is here. For this one, we'll just say lying on the ground of the shop is a discarded shopping guide to this part of the city. Each building is labeled on a small, simple map of the area. And so you just do that. And so that way the players can just sort of have that item there available to them. So let's go ahead and design like a butcher shop here. This is going to be kind of tricky to make this interesting and intriguing, but we'll figure something out here. First off, we got to go to our construction tool here. Portal tool. Let's get ourselves a door. Put a door like, oops, hold on. I prefer the doors. So like for the most part, I'll for the most part, I like things to not be snapped to the grid, just because I think it feels more organic to be able to put things directly against the wall and stuff. But for some reason, with doors and windows and stuff, I can't get myself to not like have my skin crawl a little bit when the windows and doors don't snap onto the grid. And I think it's just because like the mechanics of going through those portals, like going through a door that isn't exactly on the square, just feels weird, since like the characters are locked to the grid. It's probably something that would be healthier for me to learn to let go of, but instead I'm just going to keep obsessing over it like a weirdo. Because that's just my way. That's just what I do. So we got a little butcher shop here, and we'll probably have just like a little display set up in this corner window, because it's all supposed to be shops. It's supposed to feel kind of like a mall. So go back to our object tool. I guess actually the first thing that I want to do is I just want to put in some lighting that would be in this shop here. Oops, no, unsnap. There we go. So go like there. Maybe, actually, you know what? Undo. I think they wouldn't have sconces. I think this place is big enough that they would probably just have overhanging chandeliers. So we can just do that, and then like get our light tool here, and just get ourselves some nice big glowy lights going on there. Perfect. So if we do that, grab our object tool. So now here's where I'm gonna have to really start getting creative if I want this to look anything like a like an actual butcher shop or something. I mean, it's gonna be really weird looking in general. I kind of want to put a bar right here. It's not actually going to be a bar, so it's kind of strange to put a bar there. But I feel like that's where like the display cases of the meats and stuff would go, I guess. I don't know. A butcher shop doesn't really translate between like historical and modern day settings. You know what I mean? That's one of the more challenging ones, to try and reconcile historic thoughts versus modern day. But I feel like we can get away with giving them a little fireplace. Like, you know, they would do that to like cook and cure meats and stuff like that, I guess. I don't know. And we can just kind of set up, like I say, a display here. If we do that and then that would probably have stuff. And then we can kind of come down here and we can just like set up different barrels and stuff like that that would have at the time had different like products and like meats and stuff that people could grab. I don't know. It's a very, very imperfectly designed area. Maybe one might argue a little ill-conceived, but I don't know. Sometimes you just gotta scrape the bottom of the barrel to find an idea to fill up space. Really, because ultimately, what are we trying to do? We're just trying to come up with an excuse to have a game to play. and have places to explore. So if we have like a shop that's got random crap in it, then like, hey, there we go. That's perfect. So we'll do that, and then we can go up and grab our little piece of paper here. And we'll just have that lying on the ground there. I don't know. That's a little simplistic, but I don't know, honestly, what else I could do. I mean, I guess I could, like, I described it all as being already rotten and stuff, but I could just, like, put a couple fish lying around, just to, like, a couple fish and maybe that, like, ham leg bone or whatever it is. Where is that ham hock thing? I know. Oh, wait, no, I didn't end up using it because it was too big. But we can go and just search by, oh, it's wanting me to... Yeah, we can do that, and then where's our ham hock? There it is. There. Boom. Butcher shop display. There's a big old giant leg of, like, beef or whatever. I don't know. Would they have beef underground? It's kind of weird. Like, where would dwarven food come from? Like, you can think about, like, with existing societies, you know, they could just trade and get their food that way, but, like, thinking about the concept of, like, how did the first mountain-faring dwarves survive down there? Like, why would they choose that? Doesn't make any sense. But whatever. It's like, do they live on a diet of entirely, like, mushrooms, lichen, and, like, cave rats or something? I don't know. I don't know. Who's to say? I guess that kind of gets to be up to me, right? Because this is my homebrew world, so, like, I could just kind of say it's whatever I want it to be. But I just have other things that I'm thinking about than that, so I've just never really puzzled that one out. Alright, so yeah, and so like the chitines will be like in there rummaging about, looking for stuff, all that kind of stuff, and I think that is an excellent room. That's great. Alrighty, so looking at the time and thinking about what the next steps would be, since we would have to start an entirely new room, I think what I'm going to do is we're going to call that a writing stream for the day. What's going to happen next is I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and then I'll come back, and video gaming will be up next, so you can check that out. Today, if I'm remembering my own schedule, which it's hard for me to keep it straight just because it's a new kind of schedule for a new year. Today we'll be playing Neverwinter Nights. We've been playing that one for a while, and I want to keep going with that one. But as we're starting a new year and I'm trying to think about what I want to do with my channel and stuff, I've kind of realized that I want to play more games. I want to write more diverse stuff. So I'm trying to mix up the things that I write and the things that I play on any given day of the week. So I'll be playing different games. I won't be playing the same game every day that I stream. But today we'll still be playing Neverwinter Nights. So I'm going to take like a 15-minute break, just kind of rest my voice a little bit, grab something else to drink, get the game all set up, and then I'll be back, and we're going to play that for a couple hours. So that's kind of the plan. I should probably save this to make sure I don't lose all my progress here. That'd be disappointing. But yeah, that's gonna take us over the next couple hours. So for those of you who have been here, I know Slashkey. It's an old deep cut. I've been having a lot of fun playing it again. Been having a lot of fun. So yeah, for those of you who joined me for writing here, thank you so much for being back with me. First writing stream of the year. Feels really good to be back after a couple of weeks of not streaming consistently. I have so much fun with these. Like it's been such a good thing for me to do this, because it gives me a reason to keep up with a lot of my creative outlets and my creative projects that would be easy to otherwise just kind of let slip by the wayside. And being back involved and tapping into that creative part of my personality and my mentality has been such a good thing for me. So it's been really fun doing these writing streams, and I'm so excited to be doing it again this year, and just kind of hopefully growing and doing more projects and, you know, sharing more ideas with more people and everything. And it's a lot of fun. So thank you to everyone who came by. I appreciate being able to come back and have discussions with people about cool stuff. It feels good. It just feels like a return to a very comfortable place to be back here after kind of a couple weeks of not streaming a whole lot. So thank you so much to everyone who joined me. If you want to join me for more writing streams every week, my intended schedule, so long as my day job, because this isn't how I earn money. I have another job like a full-time job that is my bill-paying job. And I'm just very fortunate that I work from home, and the nature of my job is that I need to be available for when I'm needed, but I will oftentimes have a fair bit of downtime for it, so that gives me freedom to do this. I'm very fortunate to do it. So as long as that day job allows me to, my regular streaming schedule is to be on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And I'm in Eastern time zone, so when I say the times, it's in reference to Eastern time zone. It's on you to figure out what that means for you. I'm not going to do it for you. But I stream I do my writing from 11:30 to 1:30, 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. and then we do gaming from 1:30 to about 3:30 p.m. That's the schedule, so long as nothing stops me from doing it. So if you want to check out more writing, you can do it then. The other option is, if you want to go back and see other things that I've worked on in the past, or learn a bit more about this dungeon or this world, and other stuff that I've written in it, I do have a YouTube channel. You can find the link to that on my Twitch page, and I upload all of my VODs there. There's no editing there because I don't have the time to do that, but if you just want some, if you want to see other stuff I've worked on, if you love my voice and just want it in the background all the time, you can find all my you can find all the VODs, and you can watch those and kind of see what other stuff I've been up to. So those are resources available. The final plug that I've got also is, if you are interested in checking out my streams but want to be able to get a heads up if a stream has to be canceled because of my job or something like that, I do have a Discord. You can get yourself signed up for that, and I try to announce the day of at least if I have to cancel a stream because something came up for work. I try to put updates on there, notifications there. So if you want that, that's a good place to do it. As well as, we have a small community, but it's been growing. People who just share projects they're working on, share resources they found. It's just kind of a cool little network. One of many, many networks that exist for DMs who are looking for other resources and other people to chit chat with. So if that's something that's of interest for you, go check that out. We'll get you verified on that server, and you can be part of that little community too. So, yeah, I think that's all the self plugs I have. So again, I'm gonna take just like a maybe 15-minute break. Usually, maybe a few more, maybe a few minutes less. I don't know. But I'm gonna take a little break, rest my voice a bit, and then we'll come back. We're gonna play Neverwinter Nights. So if you want to hang out with me and see me doing some gaming there, then you're welcome to stick around or come back in like 20 minutes once I'm back. Or if you're just here for the writing, just for the D&D stuff, I totally get that too. I'm happy that you were here. I'm happy that I was able to give you a little bit of entertainment for at least a little bit, and we'll be back with more of that later this week. So whatever pleases you, I am more than happy to support, and I'm just really glad that you guys have given me your support. So, yeah, I think that's all. I think that's all the rambling that I have right now. Thank you again so much to everyone who stopped by, and take care of yourselves, and I will be back in 20 minutes, so hopefully I'll see you then. Otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing you the next time I do see you. So, yeah, I'll be back shortly, everybody.